7.3 notes. We are solving radical equations. The objective is that you're able to solve equations that contain radicals. Remember what radicals are. Those are like square root brackets or cube root brackets. And rational exponents. Remember, rational exponents is having a fraction, like 2/3, x to the 2/3 power, as one of your equations. So, radical equations. We are going to be solving equations that look like this, or it could look like this. All right. So either way, we're going to be able to solve these. Okay. So we got steps to doing it. First step is to isolate. All right, and that means get the radical or part that has the rational exponent on one side by itself. Okay, so isolate means we're going to get the radical or the part that has a rational exponent on one side by itself. That's what they mean by isolate. All right, raise. All right, take it to the inverse power. That's what that raise means. We're going to raise it to the inverse power, all right, or reciprocal power, all right. In the case of the 1/3 would be the reciprocal. All right, solve. Just solve it for x. All right, and then we're going to check our answer. And these we have to check your answer, because we're going to find out that with these we have a thing called extraneous solutions. And when we get an extraneous solution, that means that it's a solution that actually doesn't work. All right, example 1. We got the third root of x minus 2 equals 0. So isolate, it's already done. What's under the third root is over here by itself. Nothing is outside of that. That's what means isolate. So now we got to get rid of this root by raising it to the power. So it's third root, so we take it to the third power. And remember, whatever you do to one side, we have to do the other side. So we take the other side to the third root, third power. So this third power undoes the third root. They cancel each other out. It just leaves us with x minus 2. 0 to the third power is a 0. And then we just have to solve now. So we add 2 to both sides, and we get x equals 2. So that would be our solution. All right, so we solved it. And now we just check our answer. We can plug it back in. 2 minus 2 is 0. The third root of 0 is 0, so this one does work out. All right, and that solution is correct. All right. So you have 2 U-tries for you to go ahead and do. So go ahead and you can pause it, and you can do it, and then restart it, and I'll have them done. All right, so the first one, again, we got to isolate. So this is what has the root on it. So we got to get this 4 isn't part of that, so we got to move it to the other side. So we would add 4, and we would get the square root of x equals 4. And now we're going to get rid of the square root by doing the inverse power. So the second power, and whatever we do to one side, we have to do the other. So the square root and square undo each other. So we're left with x equals 4 squared, which is 16. And we get our answer. And that answer is good. Square root of 16 is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0, so it does work. All right. The second one. Again, that's what we're having the third root to, so we got to move everything out of there. So we got to subtract 3. Gives us the third root of x equals negative 3. Now we got to get rid of this third root. And the third root opposite is cube. So we cube both sides. The cube and the cube root cancel each other out, so we get x equals negative 3 cubed. Negative 3 cubed is negative 27. And that would be our answer. We plug it back in. The third root of negative 27 is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. It does work out. All right, those were the easy ones. Now we're going to get a little more complicated. All right. So again, we're going to follow the same steps. We have to isolate. So if you look at this, that is the part that has our radical. So that is the part we got to get by itself. So that means we got to get rid of the 3 and the negative 1. You would get rid of the negative 1 first. All right. So we would add 1. Gives us 3. Square root of x plus 4 equals 9. Now we got to get rid of this 3 that's out front. So we would divide by 3. And again, whatever do to one side, we'd have to do the other. They cancel out. We get the square root of x plus 4 equals 3. And now we get rid of that square root by squaring. So we would square both sides. Get x plus 4 equals 9. And then subtract 4. And we get x equals 5. And we have our solution. All right. This next one, notice that there's a radical here and a radical here. Well, anytime you have two radicals, you have to get one on one side by itself, and then the other has to be on the other side with whatever's else. In this case, we would add the square root of x plus 1, add the square root of x plus 1, and that would give us the square root of 2x equals the square root of x plus 1. Now we have this isolated, so now we would square this side, and again, whatever we do to one side, we have to do the other side. The square undoes the square root, so it leaves us with 2x. This square undoes this square root, so it leaves us with x plus 1, and now we can solve. Subtract x, gives us x equals 1, and we have our answer. And again, we could plug that in and see that it will work. All right. All right, you got these 3 U-tries. Go ahead and do those. All right, again, pause the video now because I'm going to keep working. But pause the video and do them. All right. So the first one, we would add 2. I got the square root of x plus 1 equals 5. I'm going to square. And I get x plus 1 equals 25. And subtract 1. And we get x equals 24. So we got our answer. The next one, look, we have a square root and a square root. This one's already isolated, so we're going to square both sides. All right, this side you have to be careful because you got to distribute that to the 2. Okay, so you 2 squared, which would give us 4, and then we would square the x, and they would cancel each other out, so we'd left with 4x. And now on the other side, this square undoes the square root, so we're left with x plus 3. We subtract x, and we get 3x. 4x minus 1x gives us 3x equals 3. And we would divide by 3 and get x equals 1. And there's our solution. All right, and then number 5. Again, we have to isolate, get 1 on one side by itself, so we'll add the square root of x, add the square root of x, gives us square root of 3x minus 2 equals the square root of x. Now they're isolated, so now we square, and we square, leaves us with 3x minus 2 equals x. I can subtract x, gives me 2x minus 2 equals 0. Add 2, and I get 2x equals 2, and then I divide by 2 and get x equals 1. So there's your 3 U-try problems. Okay? All right. Right, now sometimes you have to be careful with these. You get extraneous solutions, like I told you. That's why you got to check your answer. Remember that. So here, again, we have the square root isolated, so we would have to square this side, and then we would have to square this side. So now this x squared equals x plus 6. And now this one, we got an x squared and we got an x. So we're going to have to move everything to one side. subtract x, and that gives us x squared minus x equals 6. And then we'll subtract 6 and get x squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. Alright, so we should be familiar with this now. We have an x squared and we have an x. We got 3 terms, so we're going to have to factor this out. There's no leading coefficient, so it should be fairly easy. X's go in the front. Last sign's a negative, so signs are different. Now we need factors of 6 that when we subtract it, we get a 1, and that would be 3 and 2. And 3 has to go, again, the middle term's negative, so that 3 bigger number has to go with the negative. Alright, so we factored it out. Now we've got to solve it. So we set x plus 2 equal to 0. Subtract 2, and we get x equals negative 2. And then x minus 3 equals 0. And we add 3, and we get x equals 3. Alright, now we got to check our answers. So check that negative 2. So we got x equals negative 2. Plug that in. We get negative 2 equals the square root of negative 2 plus 6. So negative 2 equals, negative 2 plus 6 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. We get negative 2 equals 2, which is false. So that solution is extraneous. That's not any good. So now we try our other one. X equals 3. So plug that in. We get 3 equals the square root of 3 plus 6. We get 3 equals the square root of 9. We get 3 equals 3. So that is a good solution. That is our solution. All right. The next one. All right. This one, same thing. We got this square root. All right. And it's isolated. So we're going to square this side. And then we're going to square the other side. Now this side, when you square it, you have to FOIL it out. Remember, first x. Remember, it's going to be x minus 10 times x minus 10. So x times x gives us x squared. X times negative 10 gives us negative 10x. Negative 10 times x, negative 10x. Negative 10 times negative 10 gives us a positive 100. Equals, and then this cancels that out, so 9x. And then we combine our like terms. So I got x squared minus 20x plus 100 equals 9x. We got an x squared and an x. So again, we got to get a 0 on one side. So subtract 9x. Subtract 9x. I got x squared minus 29x plus 100 equals 0. Now we have to factor it out. Because again, we got x squared and an x. So 2 sets of parentheses. Equals 0. X is in the front. Last sign's a plus, so signs are same. They're both negative. And the factors of 25, that when you add them up, you get a 29, would be 4 times 25. So now we set x minus 4 equal to 0, and we would add 4, and we get x equals 4. Set x minus 25 equal to 0, we would add 25, and we get x equals 25. And we can try the solutions, but I'll tell you, when you put 4 minus 10, you get negative 6, and you can't get a square root to be negative. So that is going to be extraneous. That solution will work. All right, so x equals 25 is actually the only good solution there. All right, example 4. We have rational exponents. Okay, so here we go. We are, again, following those rules. First step is to isolate. So this has the rational exponent. So we got to get this by itself. So we would add 2. Now I get x to the 3 halves equals 27. We have to get rid of the 3 halves, so we do the reciprocal power, which reciprocal would be 2/3. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So the 2/3 and 3 halves cancel each other out, so it leaves me with x equals 27 to the 2/3 power, which means the third root of 27, which is 3, squared, which gives us 9. And again, you have a calculator. do that in the calculator. Put in 27 to the 2/3 power. Make sure you do it right. You get x equals 9. Try it in your calculator. Make sure you can do that. All right. The next one. Again, here's our x to the 3/4 power. So we got to get that by itself. So we have to get rid of this 14 first. Add 14. Now we got 2x to the 3/4 power equals 54. We're going to divide by 2, divide by 2. They cancel out. And I get x to the 3/4 power equals 27. And we got to do 4/3 power. Again, the reciprocal power. So you flip it. So whatever do to one side, we have to do the other side. 4/3 power. So these cancel out, and I get x equals, and then 27 to the 4/3 power. Again, put that in the calculator, you get 81. All right. All right. Or you tries. Again, pause it. Go ahead and do them on your own, and then I'm going to do them. All right. So again, just pause it. All right. So I'm going to square because it's already isolated. I got x plus 2 equals 0. Subtract 2, and we get x equals -2. Next one, again, we got the square root. So we got to square it because it's already isolated. Whatever do to one side, I have to do the other side. So now I got x squared equals, these cancel each other out, x plus 2. I have to subtract x, which gives me x squared minus x equals 2, and then subtract 2. And I got x squared minus x minus 2 equals 0. This is where we got to factor it. So again, we factor 2 sets of parentheses equal to 0. X is in the front. That sign's negative, so signs are different. And the factors of 2, when we subtract it, we get a 1, would be 2 and 1. And a bigger number has to go in with the negative, so 2 goes here, 1 goes there. Then we set x plus 1 equals 0. Subtract 1, and we get x equals -1. And then x minus 2 equals 0. Add 2, and we get x equals 2. Again, for -1, this can't be negative, so that one doesn't work. This one is the correct solution. So just be careful. You can plug those in and check. All right. All right, and then number 8. This is our one that has the rational exponent. So here we go. We add 8. All right, x to the 3/2 power equals 8. And now we're going to get rid of that 3/2 power by doing the reciprocal power. So flip it. So 2/3 power. And whatever do to one side, we have to do the other. These cancel each other out. So I get x equals 8 to the 2/3 power. All right, 8 to the 2/3 power is going to give me 4. And there is my solution. All right. And that is your notes for today. So now what I want you to do is I want to make sure you go in and you do the one that says homework. All right. I want you to do the worksheet that says homework.